I'm always worried when Kingsley's ahead of me because he's got every joke covered now. Obviously, our great connection goes back a good few years because I'm a solid Munster fan and he's obviously been a solid Leinster fan. So we've always had an engagement of giving each other a hard time. Anytime there's a match on, I watch it in California. He's either in Dublin or Australia or wherever Kingsley is latest at with the American Ireland Fund. So I just want to thank Kingsley for his friendship and also being part of what we're doing here today. Before I'm going to introduce a little video which will give you a little bit more context in terms of what we're doing. I can kind of describe it in words, but I think it's better for you to kind of see what we're trying to do and what we're achieving. We set up the organisation, 4 years ago. Yes, I have an Irish accent, but I lived 14 years in Silicon Valley, and many of the colleagues, in Silicon Valley are very similar to myself, and also a lot of Irish Americans that are there. And as Kingsley mentioned, for the last 14 years, I've watched the likes of Israel and some of the other countries really, as I say in the US, knock it out of the park in terms of bringing really successful Israeli companies over to the US, and they've leveraged the venture capital world, they've leveraged the infrastructure and the ecosystem that's in Silicon Valley. And now is the time for Ireland to get our fair share of that. And in terms of what that fair share means, I know we know a lot about Silicon Valley, but just to kind of give you some of the stats, 40% of all venture capital in the United States, across the 50 states, is literally invested in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is not a big place. It's about 45 miles north-south, 10 miles east-west, and in fact most of the investment that's done is on Sandhill Road, which is one street. So it's a very important location from an innovation perspective. Also in terms of a lot of names of the companies over the last number of decades, probably over the last 5 to 6 decades, Silicon Valley has continued to reinvent itself. It's continued to bring the biggest and greatest companies, in the world, starting with the likes of HP, the likes of Intel coming out of Silicon Valley, Cisco, and obviously over the last decade, the whole world of social media has really happened and taken place, in Silicon Valley. And if you look at the market cap of the combined numbers of companies that are in Silicon Valley, it's almost $2 trillion. So you can imagine the intensity that's actually there, but also it's actually an unbelievable place to work. I guess as an Irishman, going over there, the amount of energy that's there, the amount of enthusiasm that's there is really infectious. And sitting over there and kind of looking over at Ireland, you have a different perspective of things, and you've also got a different perspective in terms of the potential. And what we as a group, we originally set the group up in 2007. A number of my colleagues here that set this up with me, Rory McInerney, who's head of R&D, Vice President of R&D and Enterprise with Intel, travelled over here. He's lived in Silicon Valley for 20 years. Barry O'Sullivan is here somewhere. Barry is head of voice technology and WebEx worldwide for Cisco, Senior Vice President, Cisco reporting here in Ireland to him. And a number of other kind of key colleagues, Niall O'Connor, who's CIO of Apple, John Gilmore, Conrad Burke, who's a founder of a company called InnovaLight and recently sold his company at a significant return for his investors. And I guess we're a group of individuals that have experienced the Silicon Valley opportunity, and we set the group up initially really to create a connection between Silicon Valley and a two-way connection. We were sitting in Silicon Valley being executives that had a footprint in Ireland, and we wanted to make sure we were as competitive as possible, both from our company's perspective and from an Ireland perspective. Secondly, we wanted to create an avenue and a gateway for young Irish technology companies. And, in our experience, we've come over here for the last 4 years. I think year one to, today, we've met 50 companies over the last 48 hours. And we've engaged with pretty much most of the universities on the island of Ireland. And I can tell you that the difference between what we saw 4 years ago and what we saw now over this week is simply incredible. I think the energy, the enthusiasm for some of these companies, it's a much more go-for-it attitude. 4 years ago, 3 years ago, there was definitely that sense of, hey, let's have a very conservative business plan. And obviously you want to have a conservative business plan within reason, but you also want to really kind of go for it in terms of the opportunity. And there was also a concern about failure and failing, which I don't think it's something that we've got over yet in Ireland, but it's something that we need to get over really, really fast, because if we're going to be successful in the 21st century, the innovation century, we got to get over failure and have that dogged, deterministic view on going for our businesses. So that's why Silicon Valley is is important. This event here is a lot of hard work that's gone on over the last almost a year, just kind of bringing all this together. And I want to personally thank President McGrath and Richard Stokes and Eilish Joyce, for really helping us kind of bring all this together. I think, as I didn't know 4 years ago, putting all these events on is a pretty major event in itself, and the work that goes behind the scenes in terms of bringing everybody together is a big deal. So I really want to thank DCU and Invent, for supporting that. So I just want to give him a round of applause. And likewise, we're a non-profit organisation. We set up the ITLG in that focused way, but we can't operate without the support of our sponsors. And many of our sponsors here today, including Cisco, Science Foundation of Ireland, Enterprise Ireland, as well as Deloitte, PwC, and many of the major names that are in Silicon Valley that we've worked with, like Silicon Valley Bank, have all made it possible for us to do what we're doing. And also, it's given them an opportunity to kind of see the potential that's actually in Ireland. So this year was pretty significant for us. We really wanted to kind of move from walking the walk to really kind of taking action. We set the organization up initially to kind of create a gateway and create a network to open doors. But that wasn't kind of good enough in terms of what we wanted to achieve. We felt that in order for us to have teeth, in order for us to really kind of help companies, we needed to have a physical presence in Silicon Valley. So we set up just last year an Irish Innovation Centre right downtown in the heart of Silicon Valley in San Jose. Today we have over 30 companies that are either in the centre or leveraging our centre today, and we're interfacing with over 200 companies across Ireland, both north and south. That didn't happen on its own. It was about a $2 million investment from private investors, both here in Ireland and also in Silicon Valley. That some of them are here today, and I hate singling out people, but I want to thank Dennis O'Brien here in Ireland. I want to thank John Ryan in Silicon Valley, Tom McHenry in Silicon Valley, as well as the ITLG investors that have actually kind of made that dream come through. In addition to creating an innovation centre, we wanted to create a smart investment fund. It's one thing being able to have an investment, but it's really important to help a company scale. And in my experience, I was in Handspring and Palm for about 9 years. The value that was brought to us in terms of the investors that we engage with, it was like the likes of Kleiner Perkins and Benchmark Capital were two of the companies that invested. The money was part of the story, but the bigger part of the story were the people, the mentorship, the involvement, the opening of doors, and the real kind of sheer drive, that this kind of smart capital kind of brings to the table. And hence, we launched our fund, and we've invested in 8 companies this year, and several of them have come from this event over the last couple of years. We've invested in WaveBob, we've invested in MCore, we've invested in SciSaf. I see Suzanne there in the back. And, we're really enthused by that, and we also want to continue on this, with the companies that are there. Finally, we really wanted to have a footprint in the 3 powerhouses of the 3 powerhouses of the US, which is really Wall Street for finance, Hollywood for entertainment, and Silicon Valley. Obviously, as you know, from a technology perspective, they're the strongest the strongest powerhouses in the world in terms of those key areas. And we felt that it was really important for us to have a very strong Irish and Irish-American footprint in each of those. So I'm going to show you a little video to kind of give you an example of what we've been doing in each of these areas, and also how we've been engaging with both the media and also the general industry, in the US, because I guess I guess the two questions I always get when I come over to Ireland is, what's going on in Silicon Valley? And I think I've told you what that is. And then the next question is, what did they think of Ireland and what's going on and all the issues that are there? And I can tell you that, of course, is the recent negativity that's there hasn't, it is an issue. I mean, there's no question that we're not visible. But the bottom line is that, my general experience and my general, involvement with people has been a very positive, view on Irish entrepreneurs, Irish people, and our attitude in terms of what we're doing, as well as obviously the connectivity, with the United States. So it's generally a very, very positive that we need to leverage more of. Our friends in Israel, and they've done a great job. There's about $1.5 billion of venture capital investment going into Israel today. That probably compares to Ireland when we're really very similar. There's probably about 300 million in venture investment going into young Irish companies. Half that money that's going into Israeli companies is coming from the US and is mainly coming from Silicon Valley. So we want to make sure that you get your fair share of that. So maybe if we can just play the video, and you kind of get a sense of what we've been up to over the last 12 months.